Hey everyone, Metagross Freak here, and this is the video review for Transformers The Last Night Voyager Megatron. There are a number of Megatron figures out for The Last Night, and surprisingly, they're all really good. There is a deluxe class, which is actually a remold and repaint, though mostly it's just a repaint, of a couple of different figures that have been around for a while. But for new molds, there's a number of different molds. There's a one-step changer, there's an action battler, there's the Voyager, and there's the leader class. And it took me a while to decide between getting the Voyager or the leader, but I decided to settle on the Voyager, mostly just because it looks and feels a lot like the leader class, but the Voyager is a bit cheaper. And it doesn't have those weird fireball accessories that I felt were kind of a waste on the leader class. Here we have Megs. He looks amazing. I mean, the figure for Age of Extinction for Galvatron was horrible. The figure for the 2007 movie was pretty bad, regardless of whether you got the Voyager or the leader class. And of course the figures for Dark of the Moon and Revenge of the Fallen, I didn't say those in the correct order, but the movies 2 and 3 were decent at best. All of the figures, however, for The Last Night are beautiful. We've got Megs here in the front, and he's got a great face sculpt. We'll take a look at that more when we take it out of the packaging. We have some great artwork of Megatron right here with his gun. It kind of, I don't know, it kind of looks a little bit like a gun sword. You can see we got Megatron, Transformers The Last Night. Recommended for ages 8 and up, which is a little ironic because, knowing me, it'll probably take me about 15 minutes to transform this the first time. It is Premier Edition, not that really matters much, and it is a Voyager class figure. And Megatron, we have some more artwork of Megs here, and you can see, and he is a merciless tyrant. On the back, we of course have Megatron to his vehicle mode in 22 steps, and a little advertisement for Hound. Now, interesting thing about the box for Hound is that, actually, I don't know if this will show up, it shows on his helmet here a red cross symbol, which actually doesn't appear on the actual figure. I mentioned this in the Hound review, but Hound has neither an Autobot symbol nor the red cross symbol on him, and I'll show Hound really quickly during a figure comparison. Without further ado, let's get this box open and we can take a look at Voyager Megatron. I don't say this a lot about figures, but hot damn, this is a beautiful Megatron. I have the deluxe class Megatron from War for Cybertron, and I used to have the Voyager for the 2007 movie. But this one pales in comparison. He's just a beautiful figure. He has just some wonderful molding on just all of his body, actually. The gun looks phenomenal. His little fusion cannon here. It doesn't fire, but it looks phenomenal. He's got a bit of asymmetry. You can see on the pauldrons, those are the shoulder bits. A little bit of asymmetry, as well as on his 2 breastplates. But I kind of like that. The asymmetry just gives him that look that, like, he's not all fully there. Posability seems to be pretty standard for these kind of figures. Does have I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if it's a ball joint or if it's a swivel that is on kind of like a little hinge. I'm not really sure. It feels like a ball joint, though it's a little tight. For the head, I really wish these little side plates, the little tusk plates, could fold in. Unfortunately, that is only available on the leader figure. So if you want that, you'll have to get the leader figure, but I still think this looks pretty great. Arms are pretty standard for Voyagers. We have the swivel in the upper arm, hinge in the elbow. No wrist articulation, save for what's necessary for the transformation. Though there are these two, this is interesting, these 2 plates that can flip up on the arms like this to allow the arm a little bit more flexibility. That's an interesting feature. But for the actual shoulders themselves, they are, I think that's just because they're on a tight swivel. It's a very tight swivel. So I think they added those in just to give a little more posability. I think that's a really cool feature, though the actual plates coming up is a little bizarre, to be honest. Unfortunately, there's no waist articulation due to the way the figure transforms, but there are just like with Optimus and Hound and Grimlock, so you know the other Voyagers for this movie, there are skirt panels that flip up to allow full articulation of the legs. We have two in the front over here, as well as the thrusters for the jet mode turn into skirts. That's actually kind of cool. We have essentially the standard kind of ball swivel here in the hips. So we have the outward movement like so, as well as the forward and backward. We have a swivel in the upper thigh, as well as the almost 90 degrees of knee articulation. And for the feet, we have like a little bit. I don't want to pop that out or something, but based on the way it looks like you might be able to angle the feet a little bit. But I mean, he's got nice big feet. Look at those toes. He has like T-Rex toes. I love that. This version of Megatron is definitely a little more primal. He like makes like these like snarls, which we didn't really see when he was Galvatron in Age of Extinction. But this is a lovely figure. If you're trying to decide on getting one Megatron or the other, this is a really good figure. If you want the most movie accurate, though, go with the Leader class, but just keep in mind that Leader Optimus is not the most accurate. That would be Voyager Optimus. His other weapon, in addition to his fusion cannon, is his movie accurate halberd. I believe that's what it is. It's a halberd. And look at that. Look at the molding on this. That is a lovely sword. Even the hilt has some nice molding to it. Just a phenomenal sword. 5mm peg, as always. So it fits right in there. That is just great. I am so looking forward to transforming this. Oh, a little bit of light piping as well. Unfortunately, part of it is covered by his helmet, but let's see if I can get this light piping gimmick to work here. Yeah, there we go. Light piping isn't phenomenal, but it does work. If you're able to get enough light into those two little blobs on his head, I guess you could say it's his exposed brain, you can get those to light up, as well as the eyes and part of his neck too. So not amazing light piping, but at least he has light piping. So obviously I can't stop stressing how good of a Megatron this is, so let's compare him to the other Voyagers from the last night. So here we have Megatron, of course, next to, of course, his rival, his nemesis, Optimus Prime. They are roughly the same height. Optimus is a little bit taller, mostly because of the helmet he has. And these two look very good together. You know, Megatron, he has, you know, he's got the dark gunmetal gray. He has a couple little bits of him that are gold, a little bit of that sinister looking red. Actually, it's kind of a two-tone gunmetal. Some of it is more of a gray, and some of it's more of like a green, harkening back a little bit to his Voyager for Revenge of the Fallen. And of course, here we have Optimus, who's all lit up in silver, some gunmetal, but it's more of a lighter gunmetal. But mostly that silver and pearlescent gray, with of course that heroic-looking metallic blue and that bright red. These two make a great pair. I love looking at these two together. It's just phenomenal. Here he is. Here he is with his wavemate, Voyager Hound. And I don't really see these two as going together, but you know, the weapons from Hound could be used by Megatron if you want Megatron to have more guns, or just different kinds of guns. I think they go well to, like, they look good together on a shelf, but they don't go together because I don't think they ever interact. And as I mentioned before, Hound on his helmet, right on that spot there, does not have a red cross symbol. He should have a red cross symbol as shown on the box. And then last but not least, the other Wave 1 Voyager, the repaint of Grimlock. And these two look phenomenal together. You've got Megatron in the dark gunmetal. You have Grimlock. He's got some gunmetal, but it's more of a pearlescent gunmetal with that pearlescent silver. You know, he just he looks very much like a demonic knight as opposed to a like T-Rex paladin. They look very good together, especially because they're weapons. You have, the demonic knight with his halberd. You have the kind of paladin-looking, the more samurai paladin-looking character with his giant mace. These two look phenomenal on a shelf together. If you're planning on getting Megatron, I would recommend, if you're going to pair him together with a character, I'd recommend going with either this version of Grimlock or Optimus. They just look phenomenal. And if you have all three on a shelf, if you can fit all three on a shelf, I know they're pretty big figures, that looks really great. I'm excited. Let's get this into vehicle mode, shall we? So one minor flaw already in my figure, let me turn up my light a little bit, is that I'm trying to flip up the cockpit, and in pushing it up, there's these two little, like, I guess you could call them mini smokestacks on the shoulders, or one right there. You can't really see it. One right here, because I broke one off. Literally, all I was doing was flipping up the plain cockpit, and it broke the piece off. So that's a little disappointing. I hope that the other one doesn't break off, because that would be very unfortunate. I'm actually really disappointed about this, because I'm literally only on step 5 of the transformation. Once again, in vehicle mode, Megatron is still beautiful. It took me a little while to figure out exactly how things are supposed to be positioned, but this is just a phenomenal jet mode. I'm not sure what type of jet this is supposed to be. I can definitely tell it's not like an F-18 or an F-20 or something like that. It's definitely some kind of a supersonic jet from the looks of it. The molding for the engine piece right here is gorgeous, to say the least, and it has a nice touch of gold, as well as the gold on the wings and up here on the cockpit. The cockpit, again, does have some of that light piping, but fortunately is covered by gold. The cockpit also does not open. The underside folds up pretty well. You can see Megatron's head right here. The only thing that really looks robot-y, though, from the underside is the backside, where these the two shoulders are. And unfortunately, the spike does on his on what would be his left shoulder does poke out a bit, but it's not too egregious. The robot mode folds up very compactly. Oh, and of course you have feet dangling off of the wings. But if you just have him sitting on a shelf or something like this, it really doesn't look as bad as it could have been. Voyager's Starscream from the 2007 movie was a lot worse with the giant cannon bits. The only part that really doesn't go with the color scheme are the two jet engines right here. Rather than being the gunmetal, either the gunmetal or the gold like the rest of the figure, these are kind of these are silver with a slight bluish tint. It looks a little bit more blue on the box, but unless you have a good amount of light and you're taking a good look at it, it isn't too blue. Like, it's not too egregious, unless you're like a real nitpick about that kind of a thing. But this is a wonderful jet mode. It takes up a fair amount of room. That's the jet. That is, I keep saying beautiful and just phenomenal. There is storage for his halberd. You can store it using the little peg on the sword. On his back, that looks kind of silly. to some, especially considering the angle it comes off at. But if you fold it down, you could just argue it's another piece of armor plating, and you can BS that it kind of looks a little bit like a gun. Speaking of guns, Megatron's fusion cannon is actually folded up very nicely. You can see the tip of it there. It's folded up very nicely inside the jet mode, which means he unfortunately doesn't have weapons, or at least visible weapons, in this mode. But I'm sure you could probably figure out something. There are little tabs on the wings, as well as tiny tabs on the chest. So if you have something that, and as well as tabs you can see here on the shins. So I'm sure if you had some kind of a weapon that had a tab like this, you could get that to work. I don't know, you could try to finagle it in so you just have, swords hanging off of the wings, or something even more ridiculous than having it, sitting actually fairly discreetly. I mean, obviously I know there's a sword here, but if this is just sitting on your shelf, it doesn't look too bad. In case you're wondering, that little bit that I showed that broke off actually went over here on the very back. You can see there are these two little exhaust ports, one over here, which is fairly long, and then one over here, which is really short. And that's the little bit that broke off. It's not too noticeable. I actually had to go looking for it. But you can definitely tell that this pipe over here, pretty much goes to the end of the jet. Meanwhile, this one is broken off. But from the front, you really can't tell. And from the back, unless you're looking for it, you probably won't notice that. And I mean, worst case scenario, I can pass that off as just some more asymmetry, considering the torso bits and the pauldrons. So this is and of course the cannon on only one arm. This is a fairly asymmetrical Megatron. So it's to me it's okay that little bit broke off. I mean, if anything was going to break off, at least it's something in the back that isn't very noticeable anyway. But yeah, that is Megatron. Phenomenal figure. I had fun transforming it. I know I'm going to have fun transforming him back. One thing I wanted to mention is if you have a breakage problem on those little pipes like I do, putting the halberd here actually does help hide it a little bit, because you're going to be looking at the big blade instead of the little pipe just underneath it. So if you're worried about yours breaking, I mean, the storage of the sword does kind of help hide it a little bit. Like I mentioned before, this version of Megatron is very sleek, very compact. Here he is next to Voyager. Actually, I wish I could say this was Starscream, but officially this is Thundercracker. Here he is next to Voyager Thundercracker from the 2007 movie. Obviously this is bigger, but remember, this is supposed to be a smaller jet. This is, I think it's an F-16 or F-18, and it's beefier than Meg's. So definitely Hasbro has improved their ability to make jets over the years. Even like even the robots in disguise figures are better, in my opinion, than this figure. The mold definitely, it's still a good mold, but the mold has definitely aged. So there we have Starscream. And for more comparison, here he is next to Voyager Shockwave from Dark of the Moon. Personally, one of my favorite molds is the Voyager Shockwave. And you can see they're kind of about the same size. Megatron is a little bit wider because of these wings. He's a little bit longer. He's a bit longer, maybe a couple inches at most longer, due to the nose cone. But if you compact that, basically if you made it square, if you shortened that, they'd be roughly about the same size. So I mean, that's good. He's pretty. I mean, he's an average size for a Voyager, definitely. And then just for fun, here he is compared to the Megatron I previously mentioned. Here he is next to War for Cybertron Megatron, which is a deluxe class, and that looks pretty good actually. I like this comparison. Because this is a good Megatron. This is a good Megatron. The deluxe Megatron is larger than most deluxes, so they look really good together. But there you have it. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I've been Metagross Freak, and this has been an awesome video. Thanks again.